Welcome back to the Narrative Engineering series. In our previous session, we introduced the concept of narrative functions, the deep structure beneath plot. Today, we move to the absolute heart of the matter, the mechanism that initiates and terminates every compelling story. We are diving into the core engine defined by the structural absence, the lack, function A, and its corresponding restoration, the liquidation, function K. The failure of many stories isn't in what happens, but in why it happens. Stories move because something is missing, creating a vacuum that demands to be filled. Our goal today is to stop treating the lack as a simple absence, like a missing wallet, and start treating it as a precision-engineered narrative vacuum that dictates the entire trajectory of the protagonist. A story about a missing wallet is a simple event. A story about a person who cannot afford to lose a wallet because of the guilt of having betrayed the person who gave it to them is a functional narrative. We must learn to move beyond merely identifying a lack to specifying and layering it. We must blueprint the entire, often recursive path needed for liquidation, K, demonstrating how the resolution must functionally address all associated lacks, not just the most obvious one. The core insight here is that the hero's quest must be about two things simultaneously: the thing they are looking for and the person they must become to find it. This distinction is paramount, and it underpins the entire philosophy of functional analysis. The difference between a complex novel and a simple folktale is often the depth and interlocking nature of the initial lack. We begin by splitting the narrative debt into two fundamental resonant types: material lack and motivational lack. Material lack, the external debt. The material lack is the external quantifiable absence. It's the kidnapped child, the stolen artifact, the critical truth, the lack of money, or the broken political system. This is the overt purpose of the plot. It sets the destination. If your hero is asked by a messenger, "What is your quest?" they will state the material lack. This lack is crucial because it provides momentum and measurability. The audience knows in concrete terms what success looks like: getting the object, saving the person, restoring order. This lack often takes the form of the MacGuffin, an item whose inherent value to the plot is less important than its value in driving the characters forward. The MacGuffin is pure material lack. Its function is to give the narrative structure, directing the hero's physical actions. It's the external debt that must be resolved for the world of the story to return to a new, stable equilibrium. However, relying solely on material lack creates a two-dimensional story. If the resolution is simply, "the hero found the thing," the narrative energy dissipates immediately, leaving the audience feeling satisfied with the plot, but ultimately untouched by the character's journey. This leads us directly to the source of narrative meaning: the internal absence. Motivational lack, the internal void. The motivational lack is the internal, psychological, or emotional void that is either caused by or revealed by the material lack. It is the missing state of being. The hero lacks courage, self-worth, belonging, peace, or the ability to trust. This is the purpose of the character arc. It is the hero's personal structural flaw that must be corrected for them to earn the material liquidation. Motivational lacks often fall into two subcategories. Deficiency lack. The hero lacks a positive trait necessary for success, e.g., the Tin Man lacks a heart, meaning he cannot feel empathy and therefore cannot make a difficult moral choice. Exposure lack. The hero possesses a flaw that is exposed and magnified by the external crisis, e.g., the hero's secret arrogance is exposed when they must rely on others for survival, forcing humility upon them. Consider The Wizard of Oz. The material lack for the entire ensemble is obvious. Dorothy needs a ride home to Kansas, and the others need the specific physical gifts from the wizard. The film's power lies in the fact that the material quest is merely the catalyst for the liquidation of the motivational lacks. The characters already possess what they seek internally. The arduous journey simply forces them to demonstrate it. The lack of courage is liquidated not by receiving a medal, but by facing the wicked witch. The lack of maturity is liquidated when Dorothy realizes she always had the power to go home. The material quest provides the essential friction needed to heal the internal wound. The story functionally tells us, the material lack cannot be resolved until the motivational lack is overcome. The perfect narrative synchronizes these two. The quest for the missing object, material, must be the exact therapeutic process required to heal the missing trait, motivational. Key takeaway. 1. How to layer multiple lacks in the initial situation. A single material lack makes for a thin plot. A powerful narrative is built on the resonance between three distinct layered lacks, a tri-level debt that generates high-stakes drama. By interlocking these, you ensure that every single plot movement serves multiple narrative purposes, maximizing dramatic density and character development. This layering must be explicit in your blueprint. When you design your initial situation, you must specify a material lack, a motivational lack, and a third crucial component, the informational lack. We can even add a fourth, more subtle layer for complex narratives. Let's analyze a detailed scenario. Ilara, a retired renowned architect living in self-imposed exile. Layer 1, the physical lack, the visible plot hook. Ilara's material lack is the destruction of her greatest building, the Citadel of Glass, which collapses during a mysterious incident. This is the urgent call to action. She is missing her legacy and the physical structure itself. The literal debris and the missing status of her masterpiece are the physical, measurable evidence of the lack. Layer 2, the emotional, motivational lack, the deep wound. Ilara did not just retire. She ran away after a past scandal that exposed a flaw in her work, nearly killing her partner. She believes she is structurally dangerous. Her internal lack is trust in her own competence and atonement for past mistakes. She is missing self-forgiveness. This lack is what makes her reluctance compelling. The world needs her expertise, material lack, but her own history makes her fear using it, motivational lack. The quest to save her legacy is, functionally, a quest to prove to herself that she is not a danger, but the journey forces her into situations where her self-doubt is her greatest obstacle. Layer 3, the informational lack, the suspense generator. This is the mystery of the causal agent. Ilara is missing the truth about the collapse. Was it her design flaw finally catching up? Was it sabotage? Was it an act of nature? This lack fuels all the early investigative functions. The audience and the character are continually asking, what caused this? And who benefits? This layer is essential for generating suspense and scene momentum, as every piece of data she uncovers is a step toward liquidation. Layer 4, the ethical lack, the stakes of resolution. This is the lack of a moral center in her society or within her professional code. The city council wants her to rebuild quickly with cheaper, less safe materials. Ilara is missing the ability to act ethically in the face of pressure. This lack dictates the terms of the final climax, ensuring the K-prime action is a moral choice, not just a technical fix. By layering these 3, or even 4, you guarantee a high-stakes narrative. The physical lack gets her to the site. The informational lack gives her detective work to do. The ethical lack sets the final moral choice. And the motivational lack ensures that every successful step she takes toward solving the mystery also forces her to confront her greatest internal fear. Function A is complete only when all 3 debts are specified. The liquidation blueprint, engineering function. If the lack A is a multi-layered debt, then liquidation K must be a multi-layered payment. This is where most plot resolutions fail. They pay off the material debt, but ignore the motivational one. The reader leaves feeling, the thing was found, but nothing changed. Liquidation is not a single point. It's the successful completion of a sequence of actions that demonstrate the restoration of equilibrium. Because of the layered nature of our lack, K must be an implied liquidation. We don't need the narrator to say, and then Ilara forgave herself. We need a K-prime action that proves she has. The path to liquidation is often recursive. The first action the hero takes to address lack, A, often leads to a new, smaller, but more immediate lack. We can call this A prime. For example, Alara investigates the rubble to find the collapse cause, addressing informational lack. But in doing so, she loses her security clearance. New material lack, A prime. The recursive process means the hero constantly solves small debts while accruing new ones, keeping the tension high. The narrative is a series of liquidating these smaller derivative A primes until the main lack is the only thing left. That is the most difficult material, motivational, and informational debts. The entire dramatic weight is placed on the K prime event, the final climactic action. This single defining moment must be designed to simultaneously resolve all three original lacks. The K prime is the single stroke that clears the entire narrative ledger. Key takeaway 2. Designing the K prime action for implied resolution. Let's blueprint Alara's K prime action. Remember her lacks: physical, restoring her building legacy; motivational, self-forgiveness; informational, the true cause; and ethical, moral integrity. The liquidation cannot be just building the citadel back. That only solves the physical lack. Alara must perform an act that demonstrates the resolution of her internal conflict and her ethical resolution. The K prime action. Alara discovers the citadel collapse was sabotaged by a rival who exploited a minor, non-fatal structural element she had used in the past, triggering her old trauma. Her final action is not just identifying the saboteur, but publicly submitting a structural redesign of the citadel using a critically modified, superior version of the very element that failed her previously, while simultaneously exposing the corporate rival who pushed for cheap, dangerous alternatives. She chooses to face the ghost of her past failure, rather than run from it, and she refuses to compromise her standards. This irreversible act is the K prime. The triple ripple effect. K1, the physical liquidation. The tangible result. The new citadel design is superior and structurally safe. Her professional legacy is restored through an act of public defiance and technical genius, paying off the material debt. K2, the emotional, ethical liquidation, implied. Her deliberate choice to reuse the flawed element, but perfect it, proves her self-acceptance. She demonstrates that she trusts her expertise implicitly and that she will prioritize structural integrity over corporate speed, the ethical lack. She is no longer defined by her mistake, but by her learned expertise. This action is her self-forgiveness and her moral stand. I3, the informational liquidation. By identifying and neutralizing the saboteur, the mystery of who and why is solved, and the threat of corruption is eliminated. The contextual truth is restored. Notice how the satisfaction isn't just in the material win, the new building. It's in the motivational and ethical win, the psychological breakthrough, which is functionally demonstrated by the nature of the material win itself. A great liquidation is a perfect logical echo of the lack that started the journey, making the final moment feel inevitable and deeply meaningful. Key takeaway. 3. Analyzing failure to liquidate, the tragic ending. What happens when the narrative contract is deliberately broken? This is the domain of tragedy, the functional failure to liquidate, or not K. A tragedy is not a story where the hero loses. It's a story where the hero fails to pay the narrative debt. A tragic ending must be structurally earned. It must feel inevitable. This occurs when the protagonist's own motivational lack is so severe, it becomes a permanent, self-imposed obstacle to the material liquidation, or when the external forces are too great. We examine two primary functional failures. The flaw demonstration. The hero possesses a motivational lack that they cannot or refuse to overcome. The system critique. The hero overcomes their motivational lack, but the external material ethical lack is too vast and powerful to be liquidated by a single individual. Consider Macbeth. His material lack is the missing crown and security as king. His core motivational lack is an unchecked, violent ambition and a complete lack of moral conscience. Every action Macbeth takes to liquidate his material lack by killing rivals only deepens his motivational lack, increasing guilt, paranoia, and tyranny. The functional paradox is that his attempts at liquidation only serve to create more lack, A prime, A double prime. This is a perfect flaw demonstration. His K prime event, his final battle, is not an act of heroism, but a final, desperate act of delusion. He fails to achieve liquidation because he refuses to liquidate his motivational lack, ambition, until the moment of his death. The debt is paid not by him, but by the world, through his destruction. The structural implication is clear. The flaw cannot be fixed. Therefore, the system must remove it. Now consider the Great Gatsby. Gatsby successfully liquidates his material lack. He earns his wealth. He overcomes his initial motivational lack of social status. He throws massive parties. But his goal is to liquidate the ultimate lack, the past itself, embodied by Daisy. His journey ends in not K because the external material lack, the pervasive, corrupt ethical lack of the upper class, is functionally impenetrable. Gatsby's purity of motivation is destroyed by the system he sought to join. The tragic ending here serves as a potent system critique. Your tragic ending must demonstrate one of these principles. It shows the audience the limits of human will or the power of the oppressive system. It is a profound, justified, not K. The final word on the core engine. Narrative is an accounting system. You take out a large layered debt, the lack, function A, and the rest of the story is the payment plan. Every complication, every failure, and every minor success is a step toward paying that debt. If you are not certain why a scene exists, ask yourself, does this scene either expose a new lack, deepen an existing lack, or provide a resource necessary for liquidation? True satisfaction comes when you look back and realize that the final climactic act was the perfect, inevitable, and functionally complete payment of all debts: the material, the informational, the ethical, and most importantly, the psychological. Architect your lacks with precision, and the resolution will right itself. Next time, we move into the complicating functions, the tests, the antagonists, and the crucial donor functions that challenge and resource the protagonist on this difficult path from A to K. Until then, keep building.